Welcome to Tidbit Talkin. This series is just spewing out assorted thoughts about boatloads of entertainment media. Some ideas are serious, others not so much. There will be spoilers for the series currently featured, but generally only vague references to any other connected ones in a shared universe. Now, with all that out of the way, here we go. The beginning. The tendency of Cutman and Company to loudly proclaim whenever their weaponry has been copied could very well be caused by some programming left over from their original light design plans. That is, since all of them were supposed to be aiding humanity alongside Mega and Roll, they can't help but draw attention to whenever their siblings suffer status shifts. It would be especially prominent with those two bots in particular, since as primary lab assistants, they'd be at least partially responsible for maintaining/repairing the others in most cases. So, with that in mind, somebody else must always have those fake folks fixed up immediately, lest all other robots fall to ruin. Hence the dire need for a later light number to always point out what's going on with them, no matter how seemingly inconsequential. Wily's reprogramming ray must only work on machines dedicated to one specific task, like gardening or demolition, because changing those with more vague focus, like help out, into his followers can't work out so quickly, since he's all crazy and unpredictable. See, even if Guts and those other guys get forced to do all kinds of missions for Dr. Delightfully Devious, the initial brain blasting simply set their boss to him instead of Light, as in merely wrecking stuff or whatever for a new person as opposed to old one. The different, more bizarre action-filled tasks just mentioned are simply obstacles that Wily makes them complete as part of some strange routine he demands. Say, for example, his gardeners are always required to rob 14 banks before trimming those daffodils. More complex and varied junk-concerned bots like Lab Load Lighteners Rock and Roll are easily capable of lying because their assistant-filled roles may sometimes involve being made privy to NDA-covered information, such as work contracts or whatever. Simpler cyber servants, such as those freezing-focused fellows, would be generally programmed in a only truth-filling fashion because not always being honest about their current work status could result in catastrophe. Like, say, some naturally frosty structure might melt under Iceman's watch if required help never got sent because he proclaimed everything was going well since he was too scared of some sort of reprimand. Wily may have built a new tech tower thing in his own lab to prove that a certain guidance system wasn't all screwy by capturing security footage of perfected Proto-Man waking up and not wrecking it this time. This version of Eddie may work by converting electricity from power grids and or even the atmosphere into a mega consumable super liquid form. The first option would simply be much faster because plugs and stuff can be utilized, while that second one must involve like a solar panel static etching equivalent or what have you. Electric nightmare. Dr. Light not understanding that a bathroom door being barred isn't all that uncommon because sometimes plumbing work must be done is most likely the result of him never experiencing backed up pipes since that prune-heavy diet he practices makes everything ridiculously regular. Always awful Albert's activation of an electrical grid conquering remote control device could very well be an advanced doodad he developed by continuing down the idea train path that started with his glorious guiding gadgets. Rule must be able to convert anything she vacuums into self-sustenance, or at least stuff that needs thrown away anyway, because Light made sure her systems relied upon a different power source than Mega, so Eddie wouldn't have to make any impossible choices down the line. Somewhat similar, Blue Bombing Bro's excess energy must wind up vented whenever he pushes plasma pulses toward mechanical ne'er-do-wells. Of course, the only alternative to those last two things is that Light's desperation for a family involved irresistible desires revolving around perfect normal unit blood-related group mimicry, which included fully functioning bowels. Robo Pinocchio! The unfortunate name mispronunciation-suffering fake scientist Dr. Petto would be familiar with every one of Mega's parts in an exact label-knowing sort of way because Wily preloaded his machine brain with Proto's plans. Roll makes a comment about doing something with her brain circuits tied behind her back. This robot-altered expression usage actually holds greater impact than its handsy human equivalent because a machine as complex as her would have far more wiring in the noggin than usual. Of course, this control helmet is just another idea Wily thought up while drawing upon his incredible and perfect guidance system. Mega's able to overcome it eventually because arrogant Albert focused too much on Proto's design when testing it. Blue Boy of course got some modifications that made him at least a tad different in the head than Bigger Bro because Light didn't agree on how well said system shaped up initially. The real reason Rock's ready to die protecting a statue of Lincoln is because Tidy Thomas made sure his main helpers loved history since he hoped they could help maintain it properly on account of all that immortality hoopla which is standard for them. The Big Shake. Roll's regular programming makes her quite capable of easily converting this baking sensor into something that detects earthquakes because said fake mind's base form involves being incredibly curious about anything that could enhance cooking. Geothermal stuff falls under that category, both because it could power her foodstuff preparing gadgets, and also since magma and whatnot could straight up be used for extreme barbecuing or what have you. Also, Light wanting a baking sensor to exist period is because his altruistic self really desires a world where hard of hearing and or completely deaf folks needn't worry about missing out on full meal creating arsenal development. Tasty Toast Tempted Thomas wouldn't have finished working on an the earthquake device until Wily made something that causes artificial world trembling, because stopping natural tremors might have caused even more disasters somehow, especially if the thing worked automatically and overreacted to the smallest of shakes. Archaeologist aggravating Albert wasn't worried about all that lack of eavesdropping from his spybot because he thought his former friend's stabilizing device merely caused standard radio interference or something. Robosaur Park. Wily had light designed Dinobots for somebody already working for him that would shortly wind up hijacked instead of directly developing devious doodads himself, because he just loves framing the guy so very much. Plus, this situation helps make sure him and Mega would be at the park's opening and thus ready for their Jurassic slaying ASAP. Cave robots would have been created before modern human resembling ones, with the info for said extreme prototypes always present in every model for a couple of reasons. 1. Making them mimic Biofolk's development lets their ever-growing design changes always involve forms said living counterparts find comfortable. 2. It might have just simply helped everybody better study said older versions of people and society. Eddie would know how to make poison, because if he didn't, then a situation might occur where an error in his drinkable energy processors didn't get immediately reported to Dr. Light. The cure takes a while to take over Toad Man's normal acid weapon because its data was sent from an appropriately slow Stone Age processor. The Mega Man in the Moon. Cutman and other light models come pre-installed with a deep appreciation of puns, because it's a creative feature meant to determine whether or not those who commission such a bot are responsible enough for owning/maintaining it. Basically, if people are so impatient that they ever get fed up with this silly humor, their minds simply don't possess the waiting capacity required to constantly watch and check up on advanced machinery. On top of that, it's likely everybody Tom has ever interacted with during college simply loves this form of comedy, which includes Wily, hence why Crystal Man and other solely him tampered with electronic enemies also dish out wordplay mercilessly. Rush is programmed to not do so well in space as some sort of safety measure that makes him feel an irresistible urge for immediate home returning during malfunctioning periods, which involve errors of the exerting so much unnecessary jet flame that escape velocity gets reached variety. 20,000 leaks under the sea. Delightful doodad dog doing transformation training every day is basically a necessity, since this strange world with its oddly advancing technology constantly develops new vehicles that he might need to mimic in the future. Light can't help but ask Mega to be the first one going into this new lab, because even after all that super fighting conversion junk, he still sees his son primarily as an assistant. Roll is so concerned with the food being real or not because their first thought after realizing they were all trapped involved worrying about a certain technical father starving to death. Incredible shrinking Mega Man. The Rush Jet and his other features work just fine after smalling, despite Mega's blaster impotence, because unlike that blue bombing master, Petbot over here has changing size and shape as an actual normal design thingy. A backpack gets attached upon swiping Dustman's abilities, because using an arm cannon like that could ruin the innards of machines other than him. Wily would design him in such a way that helps out power copiers like this, just in case a situation came up where Proto needed to do so. Bot transfer. Snake Man was chosen to be electronic essence exchange for 2 communication problem-focused reasons. First off, it'd be hard for Mega to make his case eloquently with that whole speaking quirk slithery cyber sports for whatever reason. Second, somebody who Light originally made, like Hut or Guts, might actually make a believable redeeming person and get listened to rather easily by the family, which of course would quickly squash any Mega framing related plans. Ice Age. Iceman is able to quite quickly concoct a scheme for freezing the world over, because serving under Wily lets him easily pervert one main original programming aspect, that being preserve the polar caps at all costs, into something which would thoroughly delight his new master. Cold Steel. Eddie produces a nipple for Mega's thirst quenching needs as opposed to straw bringing action, because Light's original design for the dish distributing doodad involved researching every type of lid. It all got included in final product deals because fully taking stuff out after programming gets rather tricky. That other thing would require its own update somewhere down the line. Wily's brainwashing being forced extreme adoration instead of mere free will deactivation must be because it takes the former a longer time to wear off, making reapplication easier if glitches and or plan thwarting briefly happen. Cold Steel was performing real songs first and building up a fan base so Albert's minimum hypno recruit quota could be met. Future Shock. Purchasing illegal reading material and distributing such stuff to children are 2 entirely different crimes, because the sadistic Wily made sure that his police bot's programming involved constantly finding new reasons for arresting folks. Roll's favorite rock band has constantly remained at the forefront of Mega's mind because that Cold Steel incident made such info involved with his danger awareness concerned design bits as opposed to being only affiliated with family bonding routines. Basically, it became something he's literally fully dedicated to, instead of a deal that's only half circuited. Cutman dedicated most of his free moments to becoming a kung fu master because, over time, he developed an unquenchable desire for one-upping Metal Man on in some way. The Strange Island of Dr. Wily. Rumors about ancient beings and potentially all non-biological things in this world possessing the capability to get installed with artificial intelligence are what pushed Wily towards building a life focused on creating a perfect guidance system. Anyway, Wily finds the idea of literal Rockmen killing everybody funny. Gutsman's lack of restraint during the Pretend Alliance is because with Proto actually fully playing along, this is his one shot at being solely responsible for permanent nemesis defeating shenanigans. Endings are a pain, but all of you are fantastic. See ya.